R1 gives you plenty of room to move around, and it feels like you can crash. I'm not going to test the crashing part. Direct drive smart trainers interact with virtual cycling platforms and training programs like Zwift. They change resistance automatically to create a real-world cycling experience. They don't destroy your tires like wheel-on friction trainers, and they're relatively quiet. We selected 5 of the top models available for 2021, and we tested them for stability under full power and the amount of noise they put out at 15 miles per hour and also 25 miles per hour. And because not everyone has the space for a dedicated indoor riding setup, we checked the weight, we tested how easy they are to carry around, and we checked how much space they take up if you have to store them. All these trainers come with the hardware to work with both quick release and through axle bikes. They work with SRAM and Shimano drivetrains and measure power up to at least 2,000 watts. The Tacx Neo 2T measures power up to 2,200 watts and simulates slopes up to 25%. And riders looking to refine their pedal stroke will appreciate the pedal stroke analysis feature within the app. The Saris H3 measures power up to 2,000 watts and simulates gradients up to 20%. And if you're into e-racing, the H3 is actually certified by both Zwift and Be Cool for accuracy. Wahoo Kickr measures power up to 2,200 watts and simulates gradients up to 20%. We also love that the Kickr doesn't require a spin-down calibration. The Elite Direto XR measures power up to 2,300 watts and simulates gradients up to 24%, and it's also the easiest to move in and out of storage. The Kinetic R1 measures power up to 2,000 watts, simulates gradients up to 20%, and has far and away the most side-to-side movement. When we're talking about direct drive smart trainers, we can't ignore weight. And most of that weight comes from not only the hardware, but also the flywheel itself, which is needed to create that feeling of momentum when you're riding. And these things are really stinking heavy. Most of them weigh in the mid to upper 40s. The heaviest was the Kinetic R1 at just over 54 pounds. And the Elite Direto XR actually surprised us. That is just under 36 pounds, which is almost 10 pounds lighter than the next closest trainer. Jesus, I'm out of breath from this. All of these trainers fold down to some degree or another, but they still are roughly about 1 foot wide and 1.5 to 2 feet tall. The Tacx, on the other hand, folds down small enough to fit into a large carry-on suitcase, but at almost 50 pounds, we wouldn't suggest trying to stuff it into an overhead bin. With that out of the way, let's talk about how these trainers actually ride. 3 of them allow some degree of side-to-side movement, while 2 of the trainers keep the bikes locked perfectly in place. Connecting onto Zwift was as easy as you can expect. So on the Saris, there is no side-to-side movement other than just incidental movement coming from the trainer itself flexing. Now, despite keeping you locked in place, the H3 is actually one of the sturdiest trainers. I'm on the Elite Direto XR. Like the Saris H3, this trainer also has no specific movement, and in fact feels a little sturdier than the Saris H3. Gotta be honest, that's actually one of the best trainers I've felt in a flat-out sprint. The R1 does have the most side-to-side movement of all of these trainers, but it might be too much for some riders. It does add a level of comfort when you're spending long hours on the trainer, but it takes some getting used to having the bike moving that much underneath you. One thing that's a little funny about this level of movement is that when you're on the trainer, the bike moves side to side in the opposite way that it does in real life. No laughing if I crash. Without the benefit of forward momentum, the bike leans in the direction of each downstroke. While having a certain amount of movement is comfortable for long trainer rides, it doesn't exactly feel natural. The previous version of the Kickr locked you in about as solid as any other trainer out there. And with the Axis feet, there's actually 3 different cups that fit over those gray rubber feet down there. This is about all we have to work with. Now, Wahoo was very clear they weren't trying to create or mimic any sort of feeling like you might be used to when riding outside with the Axis feet. The goal was simply to make it more comfortable. It's just enough movement that you can ride several hours on the trainer and not feel completely locked in place, but it's not so much movement that if you're riding hard or if you're out of the saddle, that the bike is moving side to side in an unnatural way. So the Tacx does allow some side-to-side movement, more than the Kickr, a lot less than the Kinetic, but definitely enough that you can rock the bike side to side. In terms of feeling of stability while sprinting, The Tacx feels very middle of the road. Part of that is a function of the amount of side-to-side movement you get. Fun fact about the Neo 2T is you can actually ride it without being connected to external power. It doesn't work as well in Zwift without that external power, but it can be done. To test the noise, we've got a decibel meter, and we're gonna test each trainer at 15 miles an hour and 25 miles an hour. Typically, direct drive trainers aren't gonna vary that much in their noise depending on speed. At 15 miles per hour, all the trainers measured remarkably similar, right around 69 decibels. However, the Saris was the clear winner at 67 decibels. Once we sped up to 25 miles per hour, things changed. The Tacx, the Kickr, and the Saris all remained largely the same at 70 decibels, while the Direto and the R1 measured at 76 decibels. But these trainers are meant to be virtually silent, right? The trainer itself may be silent, but don't forget there's also the noise of the drivetrain going on here. And so that's why you have a lot of remarkably similar readings across vastly different trainers. So these are 5 of the best direct drive trainers, and they each stand out for different reasons. The Wahoo wins the prize for being the most user-friendly. The Tacx has the most bells and whistles. The Kinetic offers the most freedom to move. The Saris is the quietest, and the Elite is most portable. So I want to know what's most important to you when you're selecting a direct drive trainer. Tell us in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to Bicycling for more videos. Well, the direct drive trainers are great to ride, they're terrible to carry.